All right, I'm going to get started. So this talk is kind of haphazardly thrown together. I literally put this, not even a slide deck, but more like a tutorial-esque type website together to demonstrate how to use Hugo and how you can get a blog site going. And to do so, I did it by demonstrating how to do it in the tutorial. So kind of like, almost like a proof of concept come to life. So I asked earlier, who's all done the prerequisites? And if you haven't, I'll share this link. This is public, and you can go at your own pace and follow along. But the idea is to basically learn what Hugo is, kind of get an introduction to Hugo, the site generator, the command line tool, familiarize yourself with how to leverage their templates to get a professional looking website stood up, building out content, and then syncing that back to Netlify so that when you push changes to GitHub, it automatically is rebuilt and published and publicly available on the internet. So we're going to get started. So what is Hugo? Hugo is a static site generator. So they like to claim that it's the world's fastest framework for building websites. That's biased, though, because it comes from them, right? So Google's going to say that they're the best at everything. So there's one key differentiator between dynamic websites and static sites. Who's ever had a blog site themselves? Anyone? A couple people? Did you start out using WordPress? Yeah. I did also. It's very common. WordPress is pretty simple to get going and stood up, and it kind of allows you to, the intent was to allow you to focus on content, which is nice, and they're still valuable today. In fact, the Microsoft, some of the Microsoft docs are still served up by WordPress, which is interesting. Was there a question on the phone? No. Okay. So dynamic means per web request to URL, the web server will dynamically render that HTML to serve back to the client that's requesting it, whereas static sites are just straight up HTML files, right? So they are a lot quicker. There's less processing time on the web server because it's literally just saying, here's the file, let your client browser render it. So it's already statically generated.
You know,
yeah.
Like you, with those most popular ones, right?
Yeah.
I've used Jekyll and then probably use Mark.
Yep.
Do you have a feel for like where does Hugo sit in that mix of?
So the thing is, the problem with static site generators is that a lot of times when people get into them, they're immediately biased, right? It's the same thing with lots of technologies. So I love Hugo. I'm sticking with Hugo. There's nothing that I've seen from other offerings that have steered me other ways. I will say that I've tried using Jekyll in the past. I think even Gatsby. Those are the two other ones that I tried. And the setup alone scared me away, right? Because I'm on a Windows machine, and it's like it wants you to install like Python, like all this weird, random bits of stuff that I don't want on my machine. So I don't need that. For Hugo, it's a simple exe. One exe, you put it in your path, and then you can use it as command line and do everything you need to do. And it's extremely fast. So it's, I don't know, again, I'm kind of biased.
Yeah, so that totally makes sense. Like popularity-wise, I guess I was curious.
Oh, yeah, popularity? I don't know. I know that a lot of people are using, I know that a lot of people are using Gatsby. I know a lot of people are using Jekyll. A lot of people use Ghost. Yep. It's pretty well spread out. I don't know if there's any stats anywhere. I haven't really looked into it. Yeah. But that's a good question. So Hugo has nearly 1,000 themes out of the box that are community-driven, that are entirely free. Again, this is all entirely free, open source. You can check it out. You can contribute to it. You can build out themes. You can narrow down by the tags if you want. It's super professional looking. Went with the Learn theme. They all have demos. and they show you how it looks, and you can play with it and whatnot, and see how real it is. So if you want to follow along, we'll kind of enter the tutorial itself now. We're going to build up a very similar to the site we're looking at right now, using the Learn theme. So we're going to enter these Hugo commands. So prerequisites, you will have Hugo available. I'm assuming it's in your path, so you can just say on the command line, Hugo, and let's do that now. So Hugo, new site, name of the site. And once we're done with that, we're going to change directories into the newly created site, and we're going to Visual Studio Code. I'll show you what that looks like here. So it opens up Visual Studio Code, and mine's going to look different right now, but some common things that you will see after Hugo has created or initialized your website is you're going to have some very simple folder hierarchy. One of the main things being a content folder. This is where your files are that you can use to build out content. The layouts folder will have various layouts. So in Hugo, there's this notion of templating, and it's very similar to SPA frameworks and stuff like that. There's short codes and partial pages, and you can call into all these different things, and it's pretty intuitive, pretty simple to read. If you're familiar with HTML and CSS and JavaScript, this is going to be second nature. But the layouts folder it lets you override theme-specific items. So you will have nothing right now, but we'll add that in a second. I'm going to show you that in the themes directory, I have the Hugo theme learn, and there are layouts also. These are the default layouts that come with it, but you can explicitly override them inside your layouts directory. So I've chosen to do that with a couple things here. The public folder is not, typically you won't put under source control, so you'll do like a git ignore on that. This is the generated site, so just all the static HTML files, and CSS, and JavaScript. Static is a folder for additional overrides, right? You can put images in here if you want for top-level stuff or CSS stuff of nature. And then we have our .toml, I believe. And this is the configuration for Hugo, but then also specific to themes. So themes can override various and provide various configurations. So that's a top look at that. So let's add some content. Now that we have kind of a general understanding, we have a website that we've created, we've opened up Visual Studio Code into that website, we've looked at some of the content, add some content. Actually, wait a second here. Oh, okay. I think I was supposed to have had a command here for the theme. Just give me a second. All right, so we can do Hugo new, and then switch --kind chapter, and then getting started _ index.md. This is the Markdown file. And we'll get into kind of how this lays out. But we're going to do another command to add a subpage to that under getting started Hugo index. So these two things. One thing I should have done, a little prepared for this. Let me, I can share the link so you can follow along also. Yeah. Form. That's right. Yeah. So that's the URL for this entirely public site, so you can follow along to at your own pace and later on. So now we're going to have this notion of chapters. A top-level chapter is like this getting started here, and then we'll have subpages underneath it, and this theme, which we'll go into more details, will kind of enable that. So once you have those two things, you are free to do Hugo serve, and then it will serve up the site. At this point in time, you're going to have pretty much an empty shell or something that's actually not even working, and that's kind of the point. We're going to show you how to add themes next, and then that Hugo serve will be really helpful. So Hugo serve is basically a local file or HTTP server, and it offers up live reloading. So let's see here. Have Hugo serve locally on and site. Says it's available on port 13, which is default. Here. Ta-da. It's working. So it's really, really intuitive that way. Let me go back to here. All right. So next page. So we're going to talk about source control. So
Definitely need a theme. Yeah.
Definitely need a theme. Yes, you definitely need a theme. That's what we're going to add right now. And one of the steps that happens, I think Cody ran into this, is the submodules. There's issues if you don't do the theme in this order. So what we're going to do is go to the root of the website with a command prompt, and we're going to do git init. This is going to initialize your folder for source control. And then we're going to do git submodule add URL for the theme. This is the theme that we had explored before under their themes directory. And again, this is the same type of pattern that you would follow. So once you have this submodule under your repository, we're going to wire that up to our remote repository. Is everyone done with that step? That's following along? Yeah? Holler if I'm going too quick. So we're going to, like I said, hook up our remote repository. So github.com, you're going to do a repository, and you're going to put the repository name in. Leave all the defaults, right? So it's going to stay public. You don't want to click initialize, readme, and don't care about git ignore or licensing stuff right now. You can add that after the fact. So once you have your URL, we are going to add that. This is my. This is mine. You guys don't want that one. You do get remote add upstream, given the URL. This is basically just configuring your local repository to an upstream repository.
Upstream go on there, because I've done git remote add without upstream.
Upstream names it.
Okay.
So typically, as common with the GitHub flow, you have like an origin, upstream. Upstream would be like the main one. Origin would be like yours if you have a fork.
Okay. Something
like that. So then if you do a git remote v, rather, this will list the remote repositories that are configured. So now that we have our source control kind of hooked up remotely, we're going to do get add -big A. This will add all of our files that have been kind of sitting there that are tracked, stage those. We're going to do get commit /m with a message for that commit. Pretty standard Git stuff here. And along the way, one of the things I like to do is like get status, just to kind of see where things are at. Get status is helpful for telling you what stage or what states your GitHub repository is in. So after you have a commit and you've added all the stuff, you've committed all the stuff, now you can push it upstream, and you'll have source code up in GitHub now, right? Hooray! So this is an optional step. This is if you want to ignore the public directory. You don't need to. When we hook it up to netlify in a little bit, it'll actually do it. It'll just ignore it anyway. So if you want, you can ignore it. Otherwise, it's it's not necessary. All right, next step. So again, this is the site configuration. So jumping back over to Visual Studio Code, this is where you're going to jump into the config.toml, and this is where you're going to specify the Hugo theme learn under the theme. And that's basically going to instruct Hugo when it creates your website to serve up, it generates it rather, it's going to use that theme that we had added as a submodule. And then this is the outputs here. This is just search functionality stuff. This is specific to the search functionality here that we're seeing. Again, the website that we're looking at that I'm going through, the tutorial was actually generated following these. So I just wanted to talk about some of the additional things. These are, again, some of the optional ones that are specific to a theme. So if we notice down here in our side nav, we have this more. We've got, you know, the GitHub repository and follow me on Twitter. Those are menu shortcuts. Those will be anything that's specific to a theme. The theme author will provide that information on their demo site. They'll show you how to hook into additional parameters and configuration and stuff like that, which is pretty slick. So, I mean, simply setting up this, you know, several lines of config, we have responsive links to various things that will jump you out to my Twitter and my GitHub. Pretty cool. And there's also links in here when you're following through the tutorial. Again, if you do this at your own pace, on your own time, for all the specific configurations. The next step is Markdown. This is totally just copy and pasted from all of the other various Markdown sites that you've seen out there before, and this just talks about how to write Markdown. You've written Markdown before, okay? Pretty straightforward. It just shows you how you write that, right? How you get different heading tags, what they render like, how to do comments, horizontal rules, so on and so forth. You know, emphasizing italic, bold, all these things that are just common with writing Markdown. And one thing that's really neat about Markdown is it renders into web-friendly HTML. So we're not going to spend time looking at that. But now you should be able to do Hugo serve, assuming that you have some content. You should have, just from adding those things before, you should have at least some sort of shell that will load with the theme with some kind of, hey, this page works. So who's been, Will, I'm going to bug you. Have you been following me?
This one, let's see.
Yours looks like this too?
The default theme thing.
That is.
From Grav and Hugo.
I've stepped away because I want to watch someone make sure my steps are valid.
If you wanted to, could you write HTML?
Getting that.
Yes, in Markdown, you can do, and Matt, I can help you out afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, so any valid Markdown is also,
So you can mix it?
you can do HTML. But I'm trying to see if I have any examples in here. Bang. I think I did my own anchor.
Let's say if you had a static site and then let's say you had one page in there that was, you wanted to be more interactive, could you also write code too? Like call it?
Absolutely. It's, at the end of the day, it's all HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So you have control over all three of those things. So it's as interactive or as static as you want it to be. That, you know, you can do React, you can do Angular, you can do all these others, whatever. Yeah.
Well, it's coming from this.
Do you have any other pages that you added?
Yeah, so the question was, do I have index or do I have anything else? The standard is to kind of, in your content folder, to have, well, with this theme specifically, is to have like a hierarchy, right? So we'll have getting started, and then the config and git, and these are really just indexes at the hierarchy. because when you're serving them up statically, it's really just kind of like a file path on the server, right? So you can name them whatever, right? I just call them all index, and that's the standard out of the box. There's not really a reason to change them.
And then the routing would be, so like if you scroll up just a tad, it would be like getting started / config, getting started / git.
Yep.
How it would look.
Yep. Right here. Yeah. Getting started / markdown. It serves up the index.html on that path, right? Cool. So let's continue on past that real quick. So now we're going to deploy. Deployment. So we're going to configure netlify. So this is pretty straightforward. What we're going to do is we're going to log into netlify now at this point. Is there a question? No? Yeah. Oh, sorry. You're stretching your arms. We're going to click New Site once you're logged in. Are you seeing that? Netlify, New Site from Git. And then you're going to click the GitHub button. And that's going to bring you to a screen that kind of looks like this. And it's going to, let's see here. It's going to open a new window. And at the bottom, there's going to be an option that says configure the netlify app on GitHub. Because what's happening is you're going to have to authenticate and authorize netlify to reach into GitHub properly to pull your repository from, right? So you have to kind of set that up with GitHub. So once you do that, it's going to open up a new window, and then you select repository. Did you get that far?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So then you're going to select the repository that we had set up remotely and you pushed code to already, and then you're going to basically configure it. It's going to have some defaults. It's going to automatically detect that it's a Hugo site. So it's going to say Hugo for the build command. The published directory is going to be public, and then you hit save. And then at that point, you get offered up to trigger a deploy, which is really cool because it's super simple. Let me have it down here. Let me mess up more of my talk. Log in. I'll just show you what that looks like rather than talking about it. Yeah. So once you've triggered deployment, it will have a random name, and then it's publicly available. It'll build. It'll take your source code from GitHub, pull it over, do all the things it needs to do on a kind of pseudo build environment. Build your static website and then serve it up, and that's entirely free on netlify. So you have statically served up website in a matter of minutes, less than an hour. And then you can configure it, right? So you can go into site settings, and then if you want to change the name, you can do custom domains, but you have to be a paying customer at that point. You have to have your own domain to set up. I just did learn-Hugo, and then that's kind of a prefix here, and then to .netlify.com.
It's still free if you use a custom domain. Netlify, yeah.
Okay. Netlify. I've been saying netlify.
I don't know, maybe I'm
I
wrong.
like yours better.
Netlify. That something.
Heard it actually, isn't that Li-Fi? Oh God.
We're just going to call it net WTF. So that, let me get there. So, okay, so great. It's there. So just really quick recap. Oh my God, talk's almost over. You can do troubleshooting. It's only been 26 minutes.
One other thing that now too is on Netlify, they also have like free SSL. So like,
oh yeah. Yep. Free SSL. They have a bunch of really neat configurations for optimizing static assets, right? They can do, even if you're serving up your static site, they can do additional compression and bundling on it, and they can do image compression on the fly and stuff like that, which is amazing.
I'm at the beginning part.
Yes.
Where do you find themes?
So after this talk, I'll share the link to this tutorial, and it kind of walks you through. There's a themes site under gohugo.io, and they have about 1,000 community-driven themes.
And people make their own things.
You can make your own theme. Yep, you can. Yes, you can do that. So yeah, so to just kind of put this to other words. So once you have all this initial kind of stuff set up, as a developer or even a content producer, if you're blogging and whatnot, it's extremely easy to update. The fastest time I've seen this my website update, my personal blog runs on, so does a workshop I'm working on, so does this tutorial that I use to demonstrate how to set this up. The fastest site was built and deployed from Netlify, Netlify, or Netlify. 6 seconds. 6 seconds from the time at my command line where I pushed the code up to GitHub. GitHub said, hey, there's a change. Netlify grabbed it, pulled it down, built it, deployed it, and said it was live. And I mean, it's incredibly amazing. So this is, of course, now that the demo going, it's not going to be as fast, right? So let's just do something here. Try to show that. So dev cycle down here. Serve it up again.
One other thing, I can point it at different branches. So like if you want to have like a dev branch and push your changes out to like a staging site, like you can point, you can like look at your changes.
Right. When we filter out who already working on the original calendar, then
Someone might have forgotten to mute on the phone.
So I just hit, right, so locally I have Hugo serve going locally, right? And I added this cool stuff here, so wow, this is really fast. Who is talking? Someone is eating the phone. And I didn't have to refresh, right? So we can just literally, whatever I type, right, it just shows up over here instantaneously. We have live reload as part of Hugo. It's built into it. So you don't have to do anything. You don't have to come refresh. As you're typing your Markdown, it is automatically building that, generating the HTML, the CSS, all the other assets, the images, and so forth, and live reloading and serving it up so that you have this really immediate kind of feedback loop. You can see how things are going to render, right? So let's just add that real quick. So say get add all get status just to make sure, right? So we do have that one file here, the dev cycle I made changes to. Git commit message, don't fail me now. And we're going to do get push upstream master. So I have my site over here. It says, this is the live site, right? See how it looks now versus what it was locally. Let's just go to deploys and see, it's already building, right? So Netlify already picked it up, built it just from that single commit I just did, right? It's already done. I jump back over here, hit refresh, and it's got the latest content on it.
Wow, it's really fast.
That is extremely fast, right? I mean, this is production. This is as simple as it gets. So some of the cool things, let me show you some of that stuff. Hugo serve. If we want to go on a different port, that's pretty easy. So we can just do like, is that a valid port?
What do you recommend for images? Like, so you have a bunch of images. Do you check those into GitHub, or is it better to like have them somewhere else?
So some of the themes will have short codes that are specific to images. There's some built-in features for that as well. Hugo actually out of the box has image compression built into its exe, so you can just literally say when you're compiling, take your time, compress these images. You can have different formats. You can actually have localization built in, so you can have drop downs for different languages. Like like everything you can imagine that you want to do to a website, it's there. It's ready for you to use. My suggestion is I just keep everything. Let's see if I have some images.
Because one thing we ran into at Cream City Code is it took like 5 minutes to deploy just because we had so many images in there. It always had to pull those from GitHub and.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is too is you can point to them.
Yeah.
You can serve them elsewhere. You can store them and put them somewhere else. So, like for example, this website is already doing that. I don't know what it's called. So down in the Markdown bits, once you get to the bottom here, there's all these images, right? Image, showing you different image functionality with the Markdown, right? Some of the built-in stuff. None of these images are local to where I'm serving them from. These are all just remote images pointing out to some like AWS site or something. Octadeck, GitHub.com, right? That's where that image comes from. So that's another option. Again, you saw how quick this entire thing deployed. It's just, at that point, it's just pointers, right? I mean, eventually, everything's just coming from some sort of web server anyway. So it's just, if you don't want to have it on your machine, that's fine. But again, there is built-in compression and stuff like that. I did want to show this. So there's, as part of this specific theme, there are, again, various short codes that you have. I'm going to show you what a short code is, so let's go into that. So over here in my repository, we have dev cycle. Okay. So in the dev cycle, we have this simple Markdown. And is this big enough? Can you guys see this well? Everyone in the back, is that all right? I can zoom in more too, otherwise. Okay. So we have this, for example. This is the syntax for identifying a short code. So Mermaid, Mermaid.js is a JavaScript library that exists that lets you do charts and formatting and neat flow stuff, and it's pretty slick. So with this little bit of markup, or Markdown rather, you can signify that you want a graph. And then you can use font awesome icons with it, then text, and you indicate kind of this flow, right? This is just a graph that's going to indicate, you know, we got Visual Studio Code, we commit and push up to GitHub, and then we build and deploy from there, and it's live on the internet, right? And then you can style those out with these little, this is like the most verbose part of it, is styling itself. But without that, it'd be a lot smaller. And then you end up with this cool looking, amazing rendered mermaid JavaScript diagram. I think under the covers it's actually using D3. I'm not certain though. But this is just one example of short codes, and short codes are extremely powerful. There are ways to kind of get into templating and stuff like that.
How do you pull that in then if you wanted to use Mermaid?
Mermaid comes with this theme, right? So a lot of the themes will kind of cater to the context of what the theme is designed for.
So what if you didn't use a theme and you're just from scratch?
If you're doing it from scratch, then you can just pull in that JavaScript library.
You just npm install it, I think.
Yeah. Yep. You just have it local. And I wouldn't even do npm at that point. I'd probably just pull the bits that you need and have that JavaScript sitting there rather than having to worry about additional stuff in the build pipeline, right? Because is it going to change? And if it does, will it break you? So it's just get what you need, work with it, have it be yours. So I want to show you some of the override stuff. So if you notice, I've got my obnoxious mug up here. The original default for this was the little gravatar or whatever, some other icon with, I don't know what else was there, right? But it's, and then there was some footer stuff that talked about loving that specific thing, theme, and then also that it's built with Hugo. It's like, well, I don't want that to show up on my site. So the way to do that is, again, rely on these layouts. And you'll have to spend a little bit of time kind of looking at how the layouts for the theme that you're consuming were done. But you have explicit say. So anything that's inside your layouts folder is overridden in the theme itself. So I have my fave icon pointing to, again, I'm obnoxious that way, my mug again, up here. That's the fave icon, right? This image here is statically available under images, me smaller, and right, we'll pull that up, and then the fave icon. So let's look at the layout itself. So the logo is, again, overriding entirely what they had. It's simply standard HTML. This is even Markdown, right? This is just straight up HTML. And that's totally acceptable. So the Markdown, well, the partials are actually HTML. I don't think they're allowed to be Markdown files. And then different things for like menus. Like I found a bug, for example, in one of their shortcodes where attachments weren't loading. So I fixed the bug and I did a pull request on their theme because my site relies on that theme as a submodule. So if I make changes locally, for example, to my theme that I have in this directory, and I go to deploy that, my site's not going to actually be updated because that submodule is pulled from the build process, right? So it doesn't have my local changes. So rather than waiting for them to get my pull request in and then redeploying my site, you can explicitly override it here. So I've got my local attachments fixed, and it's bug-free now. Well, not bug-free, it's got the one bug fixed at least.
So you're saying to do an override,
yeah,
you just use the same directory structure, but in your, not in the theme, but in your
layouts, right? Yep. So this mirrors, if you look inside themes, they'll have their layouts, they'll have partials and shortcodes, attachments, shortcodes, and I have up here an attachment shortcodes under the same, layout, shortcodes, attachments. You can also do custom ones here too that you could then call on. So it's pretty intuitive. And then the templating itself gets into some of the syntax from how Hugo defines templating and some of the things that you can do with it. I haven't played much with that, to be honest. I don't know if you necessarily have to. For me, the workflow has been find a theme that you're happy with, tweak it enough to where you're even happier, build out your content, and move on with life. And are there any questions? That's pretty much it. Did you get yours to work, Matt?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you set it up to serve and then you pull the theme down, at least in my spot, it did not automatically rebuild the theme. So I just had to kill it and
stop it. Okay.
Yep.
So is it only live hot reload on stuff that's like the Markdown, or if you edited one of your layout things, is that hot reload too?
It hot reloads everything.
Okay.
Everything. I did find issues with images. Like if you add an image and then update a Markdown file to reference that image, it won't load it for whatever reason. I haven't figured that out. You just kill it and start it over. Yeah. Not super often doing that. But yeah, everything else works pretty swimmingly.
It looks like you can tell Netlify too to manual, like you can give it a manual redeploy kick.
Yeah, yes. No, he was talking about locally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, local development, right? When you're just running, like I just did here, Hugo serve under this port, if I make changes, it'll update automatically. So you can say we don't want prerequisites. We want to say, what do we want to say there? Content, getting started.
Does Hugo have like add-ons where you can say, let's say you had a WordPress site and you want to like pull all the data out of there, or you want to pull data from somewhere? Does it have any options like that? Or does it have to be the Markdown for the data to build the pages?
Say that one more time.
Like let's say you actually had the data in a database, or you had it in WordPress or whatever. Is there any like add-ons to Hugo where you could suck the data out of there and build the site statically from that?
Yeah, there's a data as part of like the standard structure that exists. There's a data folder that I haven't used and I haven't dabbled into. I'm assuming that's exactly what that's for, somehow sucking down the data, having lived there and generating your site using that.
Okay.
Likewise, again, you can go out and fetch data. You know, again, at the end of the day, it's just JavaScript, right, and HTML, so you can do things like that. Cool. Great, well, that's all I had. Yes?
What would you say that the most, that Hugo's and Netlify are ideal use for? Like blogs, but anything else you think this is like, this is ideal use for?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me, so I'll pull up the themes again, because I think that's kind of what you're getting at. So blogs are the most common. There's 175 blog templates, but then there's, you know, responsive, minimal, clean, personal, simple, Google Analytics, portfolio, boots. I mean, so it's a lot of, again, it's based on the notion that, you know, it's a static site. So anything that you want to serve up static, that you want to generate, you know that you're not going to have to be doing a bunch of additional, you know, computations on trying to how you're going to render something. This is the way to go. I haven't looked at all these, but.
I was thinking portfolio, and I see that there are portfolio things in there.
So let's look at that. Portfolios. This one looks nice. Wait for it. It's not very responsive, actually. It says responsive. Well, apparently this theme is not the one you want. So not the theme you're looking for.
So,
Yeah, at the moment though, I'm thinking this is easier than WordPress. WordPress, the themes out there are a nightmare. If to do what you want to do, you have to mess around, and then if you want to update the theme somehow or change it, then all that work you did is gone, and you have to like re-hork around with it. It's just a pain.
And that's the pain of it. That, and this is all ad-free, right? So if you think about WordPress, they give you this giant platform to use, and you get to struggle customizing it and doing whatever. But at the end of the day, when you're delivering this content for people to consume, there's ads, right? So every WordPress, like my WordPress site is still up. I haven't been there in a long time. But there's going to be ads. Like if you click into something, I think, occasionally some of these will be visible, you know, there'll be ads here. If it wasn't me logging in, there'd be ads. But it's like, who wants to have ads on their blog site? Unless you're making money from it yourself, right?
on the other hand, though, I think it would be hard to get a non-technical client who are delivering a site to edit down in the HTML. In WordPress, they don't have to touch it.
That's where I was getting at with like the back-end database type stuff. Like, yeah, you can have a static site generated from the thing, but there's all these like could you back this with like a headless CMS?
I don't know.
I know with Netlify you can set up a headless CMS.
Yeah.
But like I have experience teaching like just general writers on how to use Git, and you know, because they'll want to like for their short stories or their novels, they found like Git, they've heard that Git's a great tool for seeing the history of what they've been doing. Because otherwise they end up with these massive folders of drafts, right? And it was not hard to get them to understand, because generally, for the most part, they just need to know about the master branch, and they don't even need to know branching strategies, and they only need to really care about that content folder. So they just have to learn Markdown. So and it's like, oh, you want a new page? Oh, here's how you do it. Just make a new MD file with the name of it, and then just basic Markdown after that point. So I think the technical side of it for clients is very small compared to even like with WordPress. You have to show them all the different pieces of it, and it's very easy for them to go in there and break something.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
very, very break something. And a lot of times, my experience also working with clients that had WordPress, oh my God, some of the things, it was just like, oh, they flipped the checkbox, and it took me 2 hours.
Or now there's no going back.
Or
And
security risk too, WordPress.
Yeah.
Nice thing about WordPress is you can edit from anywhere because the editing is in your browser, right? So if you're on your phone on your way to work,
But you could,
hopefully not driving,
you could
you
also
can edit your
edit
website.
on GitHub,
That's true.
you know. Yeah, it's not as nice of an interface, but
Yeah, if I've got a non-technical person trying to maintain a site like this, I'd probably rather them learn Markdown than learn complicated WordPress console.
Mhm.
Or what would be cool if somebody is used to using WordPress and they like the back end, like if you could like suck the data out of there and build a static site off that, that'd be, you know.
So I'm confused now. Isn't WordPress, like, can't you use Markdown? Because that's how I've always written my posts on WordPress.
Maybe, not that I've ever seen. I don't see why you wouldn't be able to.
I never use it, I'm just.
I'm sure there's a, yeah, I'm sure there's a
I
way.
thought that was like the way to do it. Like I never.
No.
Like a WYSIWYG.
no, yeah, they have a WYSIWYG.
Yeah.
What's that?
This is a recent version of WordPress, probably older.
Oh, this was.
With WordPress.com, not in default WordPress.
Right.
Right.
Oh yeah. I don't know if that's.
Oh, maybe that's why.
That might be different.
But they're both terrible. I mean,
I will not disagree with you.
No argument there.
I'm trying to. I don't know. I'll find one of these maybe. Let me edit. Visual. That is kind of. I should just delete it. Yeah, I don't know why we're into WordPress now. This is not WordPress stuff.
So how does Hugo deal with like the blog, like lists and things like that? So I know like Jekyll and Harp have like he structures stuff based on year, month.
Oh, okay. So that's let's do this.
Content.
Yeah, it's under the content folder. What I'm going to do here is I'll show you my personal blog site. We have 10 minutes. So there. Pull my blog set up for reference. So you click on blog, right? You end up on the blog bits. You have the ability to kind of search through all the various blogs, right? You got all the categories. Next page, great. You get individual categories if you want to search by that. But that's structured a lot like, well, mine's probably a terrible example of it, actually. You're probably supposed to have followed a different pattern than I did, and this is when I was leaving WordPress and not having the knowledge of how to really do static site stuff. Knowing what I know now, I would totally redo how the structure is. I would follow, like you said, the date pattern. In fact, that's how the images are. If we go to images, you'll see 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. You go into each of those, and that's the images for those blogs, right? And then how you refer to them. So you'd be following that same type of pattern with the content that you're building out. If you look at mine right now, every blog post I've done is flat. But they are time-stamped, and that's how things are, you know, it knows what order then based on that.
So this is like a header that Hugo uses.
Yeah, this is special markup for Hugo. And then the rest of it at that point is just Markdown.
Did you write it in there, like, or where do you write your blog post?
I write mine in here. This is where I live. Visual Studio Code, writing in Markdown files.
So you just start typing in there, and then
Yep.
you like compose it all, and then you might add in like an image here, make this bold, or whatever.
Since I've been doing it for so long, I kind of just do that whilst like live reloading, if that makes sense. So let's stop here. Change directories. Serve locally. I'll be able to go to local host. So I'm working on a blog post right now for the Angular color guessing game that I built. And I don't know if you've ever It's probably, I don't know why Edge blows it up to 125%. You guys ever notice that? Edge is like 125% of what it's supposed to be. So yeah, to go into the weeds here for a bit, I built an Angular website. This is hosted also on Netlify, or Netlify. And there's this problem that I have with my 3 kids where, one of them wants a movie when it's movie night and the other 2 don't want it, or, vice versa. So we play this color guessing game. So the idea is we've got my 3 sons here. This is publicly available, anyone can do it, but you can add different players, and as a parent, you'll tell your kids to turn around, and then you'll pick a winning color, right? So that's the winning color. They don't know that, though. They look back. So now the game is active. Lennox, please choose a color. Daddy, I want pink. Oh, pink's not it. London, your turn. I want blue. I want purple. And it just keeps going through whose turn it is until someone wins, right? So I built this in Angular. I threw it up on Netlify. It's available. So I'm writing a blog post about it. So what I do, Angular color guessing game, this is where I write it. So I'm in here right now, Angular CLI, under material. Let's just click on, let's see where it's at. Oops, I had another one open. Right. Where did it go? Local, oh, I put it over here, sorry. Too many browsers. So here's the rendered version of it, right? So one of the tools that I actually use is an accessibility called Read Aloud. So it hooks into Chrome, and when I type up a blog, I'll do like a rough kind of draft, and then I'll have Read Aloud read it to me, so that it picks up on little things that I might have missed. Because if you read something 10 times and there's an error in it, you'll just keep reading it, and you'll, oh, this is fine, right? So that'll clearly kind of illustrate issues with it. But at the same time, I can come in here and say, here is something awesome, right? I didn't hit save, jump back over here. It's already refreshed, and the content's there, right? So because of Hugo serving locally has the live reload functionality, as I'm building it out, I can see how it's going to look. I can get a feel for how the post is going to be consumed by potential readers. You can put emphasis on things. You can make bold, add images, color, styling, anything you want. And it's all right there. And then once you're done with it, happy with it, push it, and you're done. Cool. Anything else? Any questions?
What's your experience with like any breaking changes as you're using Hugo over time? I know I've bumped in this with Jekyll where it's like, at least something for a year, come back, it's like everything is broken.
In all honesty, been using Hugo, as you saw there, for like almost 4 years now. I have not experienced that. I've not had there be a new version that's broken me. The other neat thing is, since I've been locked into this theme, and the exe is local to my machine, I seldom have to go manually update it. Or the only way to update it is manually, but I don't ever need to do that. There's not really, I think I'm using version 42 locally. I think 54 or something like that's available now. Are there new features? Maybe. Do I need it? Not necessarily.
So if your machine gets wiped and you come back and you
just grab them.
Get a Hugo, get your Git repository, and you're just going.
Yep. Let me pull two. One of the big compelling things is the whole. Is that local? Oh, this is a different one. Okay. So I was going to demonstrate the read aloud. See if it's playing. See if I have audio. See why it's not working. Stop. Play.
Because you're trying to demo it, of course.
Yeah. Well, anyways, how does it read? I'm plugged into things, but it basically it parses your entire document, and it knows where semantically this is the header or these parts, these are images. We're not going to try to process that. The only part where it gets hung up is See, it's already moving already. But you can configure how it reads to you and whatnot. When it gets into reading code stuff, that's where it's like, oh my God, it's terrible.
What happens when it hits an emoji?
It'll actually read it.
Oh, yeah.
It says like smiley face,
Right.
something like that. But yeah, so that's pretty much, that's all I've got.
Is there a plugin for that reader to have it be your voice? I'm David Piner in my blog back to me.
That would be creepy if I want. Yeah, it's called me reading to myself.
Get the Morgan Freeman plugin.
The Morgan Freeman plugin. Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.